Well, a number of Muslim commentators declined to take part in this debate as they didn't want to share a platform with Maajid Nawaz, the author of that piece, who joins me now, along with the political director of the Huffington Post UK, Mehdi Hassan, and the Muslim community activist Ansar. You're not going to sit there and say that you didn't expect people to be offended when you tweeted that cartoon.
Well, I think the point I was making was that I wasn't offended, Jeremy, and that's on my personal Twitter timeline. I think that's a very fair point to make.
But you knew people would be offended when it went out there.
I think some people would be offended. I can't speak for the 2.7 million Muslims that are in the UK, nor can I speak for the 1.5 billion Muslims across the world. The petition that was set up only gained 1% of this country's Muslims as signatures. So I think it's fair to say that actually most Muslims weren't bothered by it.
You knew what you did was offensive to many people. Some people.
Yeah, 1% of this country's Muslims signed a petition asking for my deselection in Hampstead and Kilburn. And there are 1.5 billion Muslims in the world. That petition was sent out across the world and only gained 20,000 signatures. So I've got to say that actually it's not a majority. Some Muslims were offended, but also as a Muslim, I have the right to say I wasn't offended. But actually, what are they offended by? They were offended by my lack of offence.
But you knew people would be offended by it?
Some people, yes.
Yeah. No, Ansar, what could you possibly find to be upset about in that cartoon?
I don't know. I didn't find it particularly offensive. I think the idea that people found Maajid's lack of offensive, I think is absurd. I think it's palpably absurd. The fact is, Maajid has been, for many years, somebody who the government has used as a community leader and as somebody who speaks on behalf and understands Muslim communities. And the important thing is this, though, that although I didn't find it particularly offensive, there were always going to be lots of people who were going to find it offensive. But this is a
very interesting distinction you're making. You're saying you didn't find the cartoon offensive.
Not particularly, no. Not really.
But you found the identity of the tweeter offensive.
No, I found the idea that a potential parliamentary candidate would take steps which he knew, either knowingly or recklessly, was going to offend lots of people, and took that risk on purpose to offend those people, shows a grave lack of judgment. And we hold our parliamentary candidates to account.
He said precisely the reverse. He said it didn't offend him.
But linking to a website which depicts prophets in bed together or doing the kind of thing that people do find
Sorry, there was no link to any website.
I think people do need to make that distinction.
No, there was no link to any website. Let's be very clear. What I was attempting to do was simply speak up on principle for the minorities within the minorities, i.e. those that we saw in this film who feel they cannot speak because they are silenced by voices that claim to speak in the name of authenticity and tradition, and say you're not allowed to express a divergent opinion.
I think it's very odd to attack community leaders who... I don't actually know too many community leaders, I know people who work in their sphere of expertise, but to paint yourself in exactly the guise in which you're attacking.
No, I don't represent anyone.
You've just said you're speaking for those voices.
No, I'm not. I'm saying I'm trying to speak in
You
defence
represent the Liberal Democrats.
in Camden, where they elected me, of course, because I've been elected by them. But
so as a Liberal Democrat parliamentary candidate, you knew that tweeting things that might be seen as gratuitously offensive...
Yeah, because you know what? Speaking out against racism offends some people, Mehdi. Speaking out against homophobia offends
really? Tweeting a cartoon...
Right, so to say I'm not offended at a cartoon is offensive to you?
Fighting against racism?
Is it offensive to you?
Telling people to F off on your Twitter timeline? Potential constituents?
Yeah, I think you've done that too. Is it offensive to you?
I'm not standing for Parliament, Maajid.
Is it offensive to you that I tweeted that cartoon?
Is it offensive to me?
Yes, is it?
Yeah, I do find it offensive. I didn't sign the petition. It's interesting you talk about...
You find the cartoon offensive? What exactly is offensive about that cartoon offensive?
But you know
what? Tell me.
To be honest, Maajid, I didn't sign the petition and I didn't speak out on that issue.
Please explain what's offensive about that cartoon.
Maajid, let me speak.
Yeah, I'm asking you.
You've had a 6-minute film. Can I speak for a second?
Yeah,
I don't really care about the cartoons. The cartoons were you attention-seeking, being provocative, gratuitous, whatever you want. Maajid, can I finish a point? My problem, Maajid, is that as Mo pointed out, and as a lot of journalists don't point out, you have a long history of upsetting people in the Muslim community in a gratuitous manner. That is the real issue that a lot of people don't recognise.
What you found offensive about the cartoon?
Oh, I find offensive about the cartoon that in Islam you don't normally depict the Prophet. When you do depict the Prophet, you don't depict him in bed with another Prophet. You don't depict him. No, you tweeted a series of cartoons.
No, I tweeted a cartoon from a series. One that the viewers saw.
Of course.
What was offensive about that one cartoon?
It was part of a wider... Oh, so if you tweet one cartoon from the Stürmer...
You two are in the same boat then. I was going to say in the same bed. I know that would offend you.
In what sense?
In the sense that you don't object to the cartoon so much as you object to the identity of the tweeter.
No, hold on. Let me be very clear. I do object to the cartoon. You know, I have a right to be offended just as Maajid has a right to be offensive. He has every right to tweet that cartoon. I defend his right to do it. I think violent threats, etc., are outrageous. The issue here is it wasn't other Lib Dem PPC tweeting the cartoon. cartoon. That is true.
Mehdi,
I do have a problem with the idea.
What was offensive about the cartoon we saw on our screen tonight? That's the only one I tweeted.
Because that was one part of a series of cartoons.
That's the only one I tweeted. What did you find offensive about that particular cartoon?
If I tweet one page from a book, it doesn't mean I don't represent the rest of the book. Come on, Maajid.
Of course it doesn't.
Come on, Maajid. You know perfectly well what the wider cartoons were about.
Do you believe in every single view of everyone you ever quote?
What?
Do you believe in every single view of everyone you ever quote?
I'm not here to debate the cartoon.
Right,
you can debate it with Mo. I don't even care about the cartoon.
Well, you clearly do, because you said you found it offensive.
I did find it offensive, but I didn't sign the petition.
I'm wondering why.
I think it was a mistake for people to go after you over the cartoons. I think they should have gone after you because your organisation for the past 6 years has demonised and tried to discredit mainstream Muslim organisations and people like the Muslim Council of Britain.
Let me ask you,
finish the point, Jeremy, because he's given a very long film here in which he talks about community leaders.
There's a very interesting point he made about community leaders.
Not really. He said that they don't speak on behalf of Muslims. I agree with him. No community leader I've ever met has claimed to speak on behalf of all Muslims.
You think I've got a right to tweet the cartoon and you agree with my film. What's the debate?
I agree with your film because it's a series of straw men. For you to come along and say that you're this great dissenter and reformer speaking out against Muslims. You did in the film, and the reason Newsnight invited you on here is to give that impression. There are people with actual grassroots support in the British Muslim community who are fighting for gender rights, who are fighting against extremism, who are fighting to have debates about religion. Maajid, sadly, with great respect, very intelligent guy, very articulate, doesn't speak for them. It has zero credibility in the Muslim community, is loathed by many Muslims because he goes around demonising mainstream Muslim organisations as supporters of Al-Qaeda. He goes around taking government money and parroting the government line on extremism. He goes around promoting ex-leaders of the EDL.
All right, I want to bring in Mo Ansar, who's being very quiet. You are one of these community leaders, aren't you?
I don't know, am I? I've never professed to be a community leader. I've never bought a community leader. I've never sold a community leader. I won't parrot George Galloway, but the point is, I've never said I'm an appointed community leader. But Maajid and his little group of sycophants, they like painting people in black and white. Maajid's always had an extremist mentality, and he's never moved away from that. And I think the people of Britain, when it comes election time, will be very concerned about looking towards somebody who says, I am the gatekeeper on what is acceptable Islam in this country, and I am the one who defines it.
And yet has been rejected. You are?
No, not at all. I've never said I am. And I'm not standing for Parliament. However, somebody who's been rejected by every mainstream Muslim civil society organisation and has no credibility and issues threats and harassment to other people. I think people will. So neither of you have. You want to make yourself a martyr of free speech, Maajid. Having had a 6-minute film, you want to make yourself a martyr of free speech, and you're not.
Neither of you have a problem with my tweeting the cartoon. And neither of you
do have it. We both have it. Yeah.
Okay, no, but so both of you agree that I have the right to.
Of course.
Yep. And neither of you have a problem with the film.
Oh, I do. I had many problems with the film.
This is a political issue.
It's sweeping generalisations about Muslims.
As a political candidate, should you be offending large swathes? No, you can't. As a political candidate, should you be potentially offending large parts of the Muslim community?
Playing the man and not the ball. Because what this film was about was the idea. What this film is about is the idea that I don't sit here to claim.
As Maajid Nawaz, you're invited on to make these films.
I don't sit here claiming I'm speaking on behalf of anyone. My point is individuals.
You just made
individuals have the right to speak on their own behalf.
Reformers, you don't. There are plenty of people who are actually fighting.
Why is it we don't see a broader range of Muslim spokesmen?
Well, Jeremy, let me answer that question for you. Go on. Let's talk about the role of the media. Tonight you have a Muslim debate with 3 male Muslim panellists. Where is the woman? Where is the Muslim woman? There was a Muslim woman panellist. Your producers dropped her before the show began. So your viewers at home think, well, there are no women who can speak within the British Muslim community. As Sarah Khan rightly said in that film, there are women who've been active within the Islamic community for centuries. Where are they tonight? This is Newsnight's discussion. The media has to take responsibility for who they choose to speak on behalf of Muslims.
There were 2 women in that film.
Yes, one of them was an ex-Muslim, and where's
the woman was dropped?
I think that was a mistake. With the greatest respect to both, I think that was a mistake. To not have a Muslim woman on the panel speaks volumes about the media's role.
You replaced a woman on the platform.
I would have been very happy to see a more diverse cross-section of Muslims. You ask a really important question. Absolutely. Now you ask a very important question, which is a mainstream media commentator attacked me this weekend on Twitter because he believes me to have homophobic views without actually checking that I've been standing for gay rights and working with the transgender community for over 15 years. Now, I wondered, had he just seen my profile picture? And he said, well, when I complained about it, he then insulted me.
No, you can't get away with this.
He then insulted me and then said, well, you'll never come on my show again. Now, if that's how we use and abuse the Muslim voice in this country, we've got a lot to do.
Just answer Maajid's main question, who speaks for Muslims? Muslims speak for Muslims. Well, in fact, and I wish journalists would understand that.
All right.
Rather than picking people to speak on their behalf.
Thank you all very much. Thanks.